My name is Mark, a recording angel. I've been observing this earth since the dawn of creation. The Most High has asked me to share my recordings with you. The following are my records of the church's early years and earliest believers, not just adults, but children too, collected in this book, Champions of the King, the Story of the Apostles. If today's recording contains situations which might be uncomfortable for younger listeners, I will mark the video with the words parental guidance recommended. Thaddeus, Damascus. Though Thad knew it was dangerous, he still felt drawn back to the guest room in the back corner. He stood just outside the doorway listening.
"How could this happen to me?"
Saul moaned softly.
"I am an honored man, a member of the Sanhedrin. I trained under Gamaliel, the grandson of Hillel, the Pharisee of Pharisees. I could hold my own against the best of them. How could I end up like this? I thought that Stephen's claim that he saw Yeshua standing at the right hand of Jehovah God was blasphemy. Yet now I've seen him too. What am I going to do now? I have seen the risen Lord. I might as well die."
Before Thaddeus realized what he was doing, he had slipped around the corner and into the room. "You don't have to die," he said softly. "And I did see him too. Do you want to hear about it?" Saul stopped rocking.
"Yes,"
he said after a moment. "When I was a little boy, my father became possessed by a demon," Thaddeus began. "He was violent, and no one could do anything with him. He and another man ended up living like animals in the graveyards outside our town."
"Where did you live?"
the Pharisee demanded. "In Gadara?" The blind man raised an eyebrow.
"Your father was one of the demoniacs of Gadara? I had heard they got pushed off of a cliff where all those pigs died."
Thaddeus laughed. "We were afraid they were going to do that, and they threatened to, but they let us leave town instead. Because my uncle owns this inn, we came here. I don't know where the other man and his family went."
"So, you saw Yeshua, the risen Lord?"
"Well, sort of," said Thad. "He wasn't risen then, because he hadn't died yet." Saul slowly sat up and nodded.
"True. That would have been before then. So, why were you sneaking up on him? For surely you must have done that to catch him in his undergarments. Of course, you are pretty good at slipping up on people. You've been doing it to me."
No, the boy protested. "I didn't. When he cast the demons out of my father and his friend, they were naked. They'd been running without clothes like wild animals for years. The first thing he did was to take off his robe and put it around my father, and he made one of his disciples take off his for the other man. They sent me back to the village to get some of my father's clothes. Yeshua cared about his dignity and was willing to stand there in his undergarments, waiting for me to return from town so that my father wouldn't have to be embarrassed by being naked in front of everyone after Yeshua healed his mind." Thaddeus choked up and could hardly speak. "It was the first time I had ever seen anyone care about my father, except for my mother."
"So, you and your family are loyal followers of his?"
Saul said slowly. Thaddeus felt a sinking sensation in the pit of his stomach. What if it was all a trick? What if the slayer was sitting here pretending to be blind and sick, and he had just betrayed his entire family to the Sanhedrin's agent? His legs staggered as he slid down the wall and sat on the floor.
"Afraid to answer, are you? After all that the risen Lord did for your father, you're not even willing to answer me?"
"Are you going to kill us?" The little man let out a moan and started to rock, holding his head in his hands again.
Whatever am I going to do? What am I going to do?"
he mumbled. Shakily, the boy scrambled to his feet and raced out of the room as fast as he could. A loud thudding began on the front gate. Father lifted the bar, opened the gate, and then whispered, "Ananias, what are you doing here? It's not safe. You must leave. We can meet another time for whatever you need to discuss." The man shook his head.
No, God sent me here.
Yes, yes, said Father. I know. He's sent us all here, but really, this is not a good time. Please leave. Ananias smiled grimly.
I don't feel any more comfortable about this than you do, he said. But the Lord told me who your guest is, and I must speak with him.
He's going to be the death of all of us, Father replied. Thaddeus has already been on the receiving end of his fist. The visitor glanced over at the boy in his bruised eye.
I knew he's dangerous, but the Lord told me to come. I have to do this.
If you must, then let us come with you. The three walked into Saul's chamber. He had stopped rocking back and forth and was curled back up in his old position on the floor.
Brother Saul,
Ananias said,
the Lord has sent me to heal you of your blindness and to tell you that he's called you to minister to the Gentiles. He'll be teaching you in the next few days the things you must know and the things you'll have to endure in his service.
By now the Pharisee was sitting upright on the floor. Ananias put his hand on Saul's head. Just then the Pharisee gave a sharp gasp.
I can see,
he cried.
I can see you. It's as if something like scales just fell off my eyes. I thought I was going to be blind the rest of my life.
He looked around at Thaddeus and the two older men.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
He stood.
You have much to learn,
Ananias said.
Don't you want to sit down? No, I feel wonderful,
Saul protested.
I've met the risen Lord, and now I've been healed. I need to go tell everyone. Where is the nearest synagogue?
Ananias shook his head.
You must be very careful, Brother Saul.
Are you sure you want to call him Brother Saul? Thaddeus' father whispered. I mean, are we sure yet?
The Lord has healed his blindness,
Ananias replied softly.
I'm sure he has work for him and knows what he's doing. Will you direct me to the nearest synagogue?
Saul repeated to the boy.
Brother Saul, Ananias interrupted, you must be very careful. There are many who'd like to see the followers of the risen Christ imprisoned and killed. Truly we thought that was why you came here to Damascus.
Yes, Saul said sadly. It was.
I knew it,
Thaddeus' father declared.
But I met him on the way.
Ananias raised an eyebrow.
Then you must be very careful for your safety. Going to the synagogue and preaching may make those there want to kill you too.
Nonsense, the little man insisted.
Not when they hear who I am. I am Saul of the Sanhedrin, a Pharisee, trained under Gamaliel, grandson of Hillel. Yes, we knew all that,
Ananias assured him.
Just be careful. The Lord said he was going to be sending you to the Gentiles.
Saul seemed to shrink within himself.
I would much rather preach at the local synagogue.
Yes, I'm sure you would, Thaddeus' father observed. You Pharisees avoid associating with Gentiles if at all possible.
Surely you're not going to let Gentiles into your group.
Saul looked pointedly at Ananias and Thaddeus' father. Ananias shrugged, and father looked at the floor.
You have Gentiles among you already? Until recently, Ananias explained, I had no great love for Gentiles either. But, well, Philip made his trip into Samaria, and many Samaritans have become believers. If they accept Yeshua, Samaritans, Saul exploded. I hated the believers to start with. The fact that they'll accept Samaritans into their group, oh, it's a good thing I didn't know that before now. Well, Ananias continued, you'll be safer preaching to the Samaritans than you would be to Jews around here.
Saul paused for a moment.
Yes, he said, I do have much to learn. I have heard that Matthew, one of the 12, is living here in Damascus, or at least close to here. Could you take me to him?
Father laughed. Not a chance. We have risked our lives caring for your needs and giving you hospitality and answering your questions honestly. Ananias put his life in jeopardy because the Lord sent him here to heal you of your blindness and to tell you what his plans are for you. Now you can be a follower of the risen Lord without being friends with me and my family, and you can certainly be a follower of the risen Lord without ever meeting Matthew. We will not divulge his hiding place to you.
You are right,
he said after a long pause.
I do have much to learn, but I will not impose on your hospitality any further. I thank you for caring for me during the time of my blindness, and whether or not you believe me, I will serve Yeshua HaMashiach in whatever way he shows me.
Where will you go? You have no money, Thaddeus blurted.
My father did not leave me helpless,
Saul said, quickly suppressing his frustration.
He made sure all of his sons learned a practical trade, in addition to our religious schooling. I am a skilled tent maker. If you will direct me to the part of the city where the tent makers live, I shall earn my keep there.
Father nodded. Well, you will get to know the Gentiles then, because that's the people you'll be staying with. If you follow this road, he led Saul out of the courtyard and pointed him in the direction of the city's tent makers. It will be quite a walk, he cautioned him. The tent makers are on the outskirts of town on the other side, but if you just follow Straight Street, this road right here, it goes all the way through.
I thank you, he said awkwardly, and I pray the blessings of the risen Yeshua HaMashiach on you.
He said it awkwardly, as if it were the first time it had ever passed his lips. I will go with you, Ananias volunteered. Saul stared at him for a moment, then nodded.
Good, he said. You can baptize me at the river.
Thaddeus' mouth dropped open in shock, but Ananias answered smoothly, Of course, and the two headed for the other side of town. Are we safe? Thaddeus asked breathlessly. His father put his arm around him. As safe as we've ever been, he said slowly. No one on the face of the earth is ever totally safe. Yet surely Father God would not have restored the sight of this Pharisee so that he could kill us. Thaddeus scooped his sister, Helena, up onto his shoulders. Come on, baby, he said. Do you need a ride? Helena squealed with glee and dug her chubby fingers into his curly hair to hang on for balance. Her brother jogged across the courtyard, causing her shrieks of joy to come out in little bursts as she bounced on his neck. When he stopped, she screamed, More! Go, go! Suddenly he heard someone knocking. He carried his sister over to the door of the family courtyard and cautiously peered out. Then he quickly opened it and pulled a man in from the street. Saul, what are you doing here? It's dangerous. Why did you come back? We heard you had left town and gone to the deserts of Arabia.
I did, and I've been out there for a long time.
The young man nodded. Yes, long enough for me to have a little sister. Go, go! Helena screamed. Just a minute, baby, Thaddeus said. Sit still. He held on to her ankles carefully so that she couldn't fall as she bounced wildly, trying to get him to carry her around some more.
I thought I'd been gone long enough, Saul continued. Someone needs to preach the truth here in Damascus, and well, I've spent a lot of time with the Lord and preached to a lot of Gentiles. And I decided that it's been long enough. People will have forgotten how angry they were at me.
I don't think they have, Thaddeus murmured.
Well, I thought I'd stop by and say hello to you. I'm not planning to stay here at your family inn, so I won't bring any danger to you. I will lodge in the tent maker's part of town. I still have a few friends there, I think.
I hope you're right, Saul. I hope you're right.
Well, it's good to see you. I'll be leaving now, and I'm glad to see that your little sister is growing strong and healthy.
Thaddeus smiled. Go, go! Helena persisted. With a nod at Saul, Thaddeus again trotted his sister around on his shoulders. Stepping out into the street, Saul closed the gate behind him, and Thaddeus continued to play with his baby sister. Only a few days later, Saul knocked at the gate again. This time Thaddeus' father let him in and quickly shut it behind him. In a few moments, a group of angry men strode down the street past the closed gate. He came that way! I saw him! One of them shouted. Thaddeus' eyes widened. He motioned to Saul to step over to the part of the courtyard they had devoted to basket weaving. Saul was not a tall man for having such a reputation in his past, he thought. Quickly he took the lid off of one of their largest storage baskets, one they had just finished that week. He motioned for the reformed persecutor to climb into the basket and then slapped the lid back on. It was just in time. The group banged on the gate and Father opened it. We're looking for that exiled Pharisee who come back. Have you seen him?
You're welcome to look around here, Father told them. We have no guests in the inn this early in the day. The men swarmed around the courtyard and peered cautiously into the family rooms and storage rooms. Finding nothing, they said,
If you see him, let us know.
Uncle Judas nodded.
I certainly will.
Thaddeus scowled. How could his uncle promise something like that? Picking up his sister, he held her tight. His mother sat in the basketry nook, weaving baskets as she did many hours a day. She also said nothing. The men left, and Thaddeus's father and Uncle Judas closed and barred the gate.
What are we going to do? Thaddeus whispered to his father. Will Uncle really tell them?
His father shook his head. No, but your uncle didn't see him. I just told him what we were doing. Uncle Judas will stay out of the way and avoid any contact with him. He promised the men he would tell them if he saw him, but so far, he hasn't seen him. A sick feeling in his stomach, Thaddeus shook his head. He hugged his little sister tight until she squirmed to get down. Had he brought danger to her because of his friendship with the ex-Pharisee? Closing his eyes, he leaned against the wall.
God of Israel, he whispered, and God of Damascus, and the God who healed my father, help me know what to do now. Please don't let my family be hurt because of something I did. Please give me wisdom and help us. I can't believe that you would want my friend Saul to die when he loves you so much. And my family loves you too, except for Helena, who's too young, but she would if she ever met you. I remember what Yeshua was like with children.
Then he smiled to himself. Suddenly, he realized that he was smiling in his prayer instead of pleading for help. A feeling of warmth seemed to spread its glow through him and take away the fear in the pit of his stomach. Running to his father, he said, I have an idea. Then he whispered with his father for several minutes. His father nodded. Tonight. Meanwhile, we need to keep everything quiet and as normal as possible here. They moved the large basket in which Paul hid into their private family quarters so that no one in the courtyard or the inn would see it. Mother showed up moments later with food and a small jug of water.
Here, she told Saul, you must stay hidden, because the evening guests will arrive and want to get settled by sundown. Until then, you must be quiet and remain back here. There will be many people milling around the courtyard with their animals, and it will be noisy, but you must stay out of sight. Too many people know who you are. We will help you escape later in the night when everyone is asleep.
But how?
He asked. It's best we don't talk right now. The less said, the better. Eat and try to rest, for you're going to be traveling most of the night.
Thaddeus smiled as a thought struck him. Had God provided the reeds and his mother's previous basket-weaving skills just to support their family when they had arrived with no way to make a living? Or had it all been part of a plan formed a long time ago so that they would have big storage baskets so that they could hide Saul and help him escape? Finally, he shrugged. I smiled. Every once in a while, humans have a little glimpse of the intricate plans the Almighty has made for their lives, and they get just a peek into the gentle care and attention to detail that He puts into their preparations years beforehand to care for them during times of need. For now, Thaddeus may forget his little glimpse, but time and again throughout his life he will continue to see more of them. Yet it won't be until he joins the Mighty One and Yeshua in their heavenly home and discovers what really was happening during all of those times that he will grasp all that he did for them. Until then, he remains loyal to his God, despite the fact that he does not understand the Creator's working. By midnight, everyone in the courtyard seemed asleep. The animals had settled down. The campfires were just faintly glowing coals in the darkness. Thaddeus' father helped Saul out of the basket. "Stretch your legs," he said, "and do what you need to, then follow us up to the roof." Then he and his son carried the basket up to the roof. Mother brought a small packet that she put into the basket.
"Bread and dried fruit for his journey," she said. "He'll need it, and some water."
She placed a small water skin in next to it. Saul followed them up and climbed obediently back into the basket. Thaddeus and his father and mother carefully tied ropes around it so that they could safely lower it. "It's fortunate that we live right on the city wall," Father commented. "Although that's the logical place to have an inn. There are men guarding the gates at both ends of the city, so do not go by the main road. As soon as you get out of the basket, head off into the desert and don't come back here. Our people have a long memory."
God bless you and your family for your kindness to me,
Saul said. Father's voice softened. And may he also bless you and take you safely wherever you must go. Reaching over, Saul gently squeezed Thaddeus' shoulder.
And God bless you especially, he said. He has great plans for your life.
The younger man smiled. Then he and his mother and father gently lowered the basket over the wall. It reached the ground with a soft thud, and it was only moments before they felt the 3 tugs on the rope, their sign to pull it back up. Quickly they coiled the rope back up and tossed it onto the corner of the roof where it had been before, and carried the basket back down the steps and inside their home. No sign now remained that anything unusual had happened.
Thank you, Father God,
Thaddeus whispered.
and thank you, Yeshua, my friend and my God.
Amen, his father added.
Oh, I didn't realize I said that out loud.
His father hugged him. It's all right. I'm thankful too.
This broadcast has come from the book Champions of the King by Sally Pearson Dillon, with permission from the Review and Herald Publishing Association. This book and the rest of the series, War of the Ages, can be purchased by going to www.adventistbookcenter.com or by calling 1-800-765-6955. I'm your narrator, Austin Backus, and this audio project is a gift to you from my free Christian book ministry, RXF 1888. Please visit our website, www.rxf1888.com, to request free Christian books for both kids and adults. And join us here again for more stories from Mark the Recording Angel.